Welcome to our explainer on architecting for speed. Today we're diving deep into the one thing that can absolutely make or break your application, speed. And I'm not just talking about shaving off a few milliseconds here and there. Nope, we're talking about how to build a system that feels instantaneous no matter where your users are in the world. And the secret sauce to all of this? Mastering the art of edge caching.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about why speed is totally non-negotiable. Then, we'll pull back the curtain on what edge caching actually is. After that, we'll crack open the architect's playbook, look at a real-world API example, and finally, we'll check out the cloud-native tools you can use to make all this happen yourself.
All right, let's kick things off with the big why. Before we jump into the cool solutions, we really have to understand the problem we're trying to solve. And honestly, the biggest bottleneck for a snappy, responsive user experience often isn't your code, it's just physics. Plain and simple. That physical distance between your users and your servers, that's the silent killer of application performance.
So let's just pause on that for a second. Why are we so obsessed with every single millisecond? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Latency isn't just some techie metric on a dashboard, it's a business metric. It has a direct, measurable impact on how engaged your users are, on your conversion rates, and yeah, on your bottom line. A slow experience doesn't just feel, well, slow. To your user, it feels broken.
Check out this number, 350 milliseconds. That's not just theoretical, that's a typical real-world round-trip time for a user in, say, London, trying to grab some data from an API that's only hosted in the US. We're talking over a third of a second for just one network request. And when your app is making dozens of those, it adds up fast.
So, if the laws of physics are the problem, how do we beat them? Well, the answer is we don't. We just get smarter. We work with them. And that brings us to the really elegant solution at the heart of our explainer today, edge caching. It's all about one simple, powerful idea, bringing your data closer to your users.
To put it really simply, edge caching is just making smart copies of your stuff and storing them in little data centers all over the world. You know, think of it like this. Your main server is the central bakery that bakes all the amazing pastries. And the edge locations, they're the little coffee shops in every single neighborhood. It is so much faster to just walk around the corner and grab a croissant than it is to travel all the way downtown to the main bakery, right? Same idea.
And this right here, this shows you the two completely different worlds we're talking about. On one side, you have the slow path. That's the long, painful slog where a user's request has to travel all the way across an ocean to the main server and all the way back. But on the other side, the fast path. With edge caching, that exact same request just takes a tiny little hop to a local server that has the data ready and waiting. The difference is just profound. Okay, so we get the what and the why. Now it's time for the how. Let's open up the architect's playbook because if you want to build a really effective caching strategy, there are three core concepts you absolutely have to master. Think of these as the main dials and levers you'll be using to fine-tune everything.
First up, the cache key. This is the absolute foundation of your entire strategy. It's basically the unique name tag for every piece of data in your cache. Now, a lot of the time it's just the URL, but you can get way more sophisticated. For instance, you can include the accept language header to store different versions for Spanish or French users, or maybe a device type header to serve different optimized content for mobile versus desktop. Getting this right is absolutely crucial.
Next, we have time to live, or TTL. This is just the expiration date you stamp on your cache data. And this is a balancing act. You have to tailor it to the content. For something that never changes, like your company logo, go ahead and set a TTL for a month. But for something like a product inventory API that's changing all the time, you might use a TTL of just 60 seconds. You still get a huge performance boost, but you also keep the data fresh.
And that brings us perfectly to our third concept, invalidation. What happens when you set a long TTL but the data changes out of nowhere? You need a big red eject button. And that's exactly what invalidation is. Let's say a user updates their profile picture. You can immediately send an invalidation request to instantly kick the old photo out of every single edge location, making sure everyone sees the new one right away. It's your manual override for freshness.
Okay, that is enough theory for now. Let's make this real. We're going to walk through that multi-region API example we talked about earlier, just to see the absolutely dramatic impact this can have in the real world.
So here's the scenario again. Before caching, our user in Europe makes a request. It has to pack its bags, fly across the Atlantic to the US, get processed, and then fly all the way back. It's a long trip, but after we flip the switch on an edge cache, that same request hits a server right there in Europe.
The response is almost instant. It is night and day.
And just look at the numbers here. This is what's so incredible. We're not talking about a tiny little optimization. We have gone from 350 milliseconds down to 30. That is a more than 10 times improvement. It's the kind of performance gain that your users will feel the second they start using your app. This is the kind of impact that literally changes how people feel about your product. So the natural next question has to be, okay, I'm sold. How do I do this for my own applications? So you ready to get started? Well, the good news is you don't have to go out and build this massive global network from scratch. The major cloud providers have already done the heavy lifting for you. As a multi-cloud architect, you've got some seriously powerful tools right at your fingertips. Let's do a quick comparison of the key players.
All right, here's a quick flyby. If you're deep in the AWS ecosystem, Amazon CloudFront is a no-brainer. It just works seamlessly with things like S3 and EC2. Over in Google's world, Cloud CDN is a beast, especially when you pair it with their global load balancer. And Azure CDN is also really tightly integrated, but it has this cool feature where you can actually choose between different back-end providers, which gives you a ton of flexibility. At the end of the day, the best choice really just depends on your existing tech stack and what you need to accomplish.
So, to wrap this all up, if you remember anything from our little explainer today, make it these 4 things. 1. Latency is a business problem, not just a tech problem. 2. Edge caching is your #1 weapon in the fight against it. 3. To win that fight, you have to master your strategy for cache keys, TTLs, and invalidation. And finally, 4, the tools to do all this are powerful, integrated, and waiting for you in the cloud.
And I want to leave you with this idea. The fastest request is the one you don't have to make to the origin server. That's it. That's the whole philosophy in a single sentence. Every single request you can serve from the edge is a massive win for performance, for reliability, and for your users.
And that brings us to the end, because by architecting for speed, you're not just making your current apps faster, you're opening up entirely new possibilities for what you can build. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that latency is no longer a barrier, what amazing new things will you build next? Thanks for joining us.